We're here today with John Hsieh from Scale GTM. Hi, John. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
So excited to have you on. We've been talking about you joining the podcast for like a year now, at least.
I've been dying to come on.
Waiting for the invite.
Just counting down the minutes.
Good. No, Tiffany mentioned you literally, I think, before we even started the podcast. Yeah. And you're finally here.
Because you have a voice.
Yay.
Yeah. The secret. John, you and I worked together way back when in DocuSign days. So we go way back. This is a theme Kelly and I have, I feel like, on the podcast where one of us knows our guests really well and the other is like very new to them. So you and I have the history here from the DocuSign days. But then I also hired you with Scale GTM to come to my current company to help us with some leadership coaching, which we're still using pieces of today. That feels like forever ago now.
It does. It's always a good sign that people you've worked with in the past, have done trench warfare with, decide to give you a little shout out when you start your own business. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun working with you and your company. But yeah, those were, I don't know how long you were. I think we were there almost about the same time, but those were incredible 7 years at DocuSign. So from pre-IPO to IPO, and I think we managed to squeeze out like 7 quarters in a row after we went public of meeting and then raising expectations on quarterly calls. I feel like we built a little something along the way. That was a lot of fun.
It was. Yeah, I know. It was a really good time.
So John, you started Scale Go-to-Market. Tell me a little bit about your background. What is your area of expertise and what are you doing with Scale Go-to-Market?
Yeah. Great question. So, if you had asked me when I started my career, if I was going to somehow one day end up starting a company that focused on helping, startups to mid-sized companies scale their marketing and sales efforts, I would have said, no way. So I actually started my career very much on the product side. And I was doing, in fact, one of the very first projects I worked on was building an application for Baxter Advoy for their patients who were who suffered from hemophilia on a Palm Pilot. So this should date me. So this is pre-iPhone days. And you can actually, on the Palm Pilot, mark bleed incidents. So children who were having these bleed incidents, they can mark it so that when they went to the doctor once every few months, there was like they tracked a record of where all this was so they could get better care. So I actually started my early career as a mobile app developer.
John, I used to sell this.
No way.
Yes.
Really?
Oh my gosh, we found our first connection. Yeah, I started my career in healthcare IT sales and I worked for Cerner, which is a large EMR company, and they integrated with.
There you go. Small world. And then I somehow made, and these days when you think, by the way, we're going to talk a lot about this, which is AI, right? But these days when you think about mobile, it's table stakes. It's just assumed it's there. But back then, this was new stuff. And so that took me a long way in my career. The fact that I knew mobile, I joined JP Morgan Chase and actually helped them build out their first mobile check deposit type applications as well. And then got involved on the marketing side. I actually went to DocuSign because of my background in mobile. One of the really fun things about working at startups over my career is where, at least this is what I found, where I've entered is rarely where I end up in the organization, just because it's so fun to chase the problem that we had. And when I entered DocuSign in 2012, we were really incredible at raising money from investors. And we had strong messaging from that perspective. But where we had a gap was messaging for our prospects and customers. And so that's really the first time, well, not the first time, that's really how I ended up transitioning to head up our core product marketing area. And then I started collaborating with Tiffany's side of the house on the sales side, working with sales leaders and sales reps. And then at that time was asked by the president of our revenue organization to start up and head our global enablement function. So that's where I spent the majority of my time there. And at some point I decided, wow, that this is really, really good. But DocuSign has become like the size of company where I think I was ready to move on. And I have to admit, stumbled upon Scale GTM because I actually joined this company that was a unicorn company 3 months before COVID hit. And that company relied heavily on business travel as part of their business model. And so for the first time in my life, I found myself sort of without a job at all. And this was actually one of those moments where I said, well, I feel like I could probably just go out and get another job, but maybe this is the chance to take a risk, to take a chance. And I've always noticed when I talk with other peers or if I've interviewed for jobs that a lot of companies were, dealing with this sort of the same 5 to 10 sort of big issues. And I always thought, wow, if I could figure out a way to formulaically help them, it would be really interesting. And so that's what is the impetus to start Scale, and it's what I've been working on for the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, like I said, we had you come into my current company, and that was a great experience. Obviously, we worked together, so I knew your style, but to see you kind of like come in and really like dive into the culture and figure out like how to put the right pieces together, that was super helpful for us. So I think it's a great journey for you to be on. You mentioned though AI, and you're right. All Kelly and I talk about is AI. I feel like even if we don't mean to talk about AI, we talk about AI. It's everywhere. So we've had a ton of episodes, especially last season, around a bunch of AI tools. You mentioned it just now. What's the story behind it? What are you seeing across all the companies that you're working for? And I mean, between productivity hacks and using it for all the tools that are coming out, like what are you seeing in the space right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere, right? So I did a golf trip with my buddies over the weekend, and I feel like we talked about AI while drinking beer and playing golf. I think it's, a lot of times when we talk about AI, we talk about it like it's been around forever. So I do think it's worth just revisiting just like a short history of it, right? So, all right, here, I'm going to throw it back at you guys. Do either of you know exactly when OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public? Do you know the month and the year?
January of 23.
Close, November of 22.
Okay.
I was going to say, I thought it was
right
more
there.
like October, November, but I did not hide the wrong year. So we're good.
And it took like a few months for it to like take off. But once it took off, it just went gangbusters, right? And what's interesting is November 22, they introduced ChatGPT. And by the end of 23, you had every major SaaS platform integrated some sort of Gen AI into their solution, right? You had Salesforce with Einstein GPT, HubSpot's content assistant. You had like creativity tools like Canva's, I think they call it like Magic Write or something like that. I mean, name your company and some, add the words AI at the end. But what's interesting, like I can't think of another technology where within like a year, basic time, within roughly a year's worth of time, like Gen AI in a solution was no longer a differentiator. It was table stakes. And so then like the next evolution, then people start talking about agentic AI, which is sort of where the era that we're in today. So I know you asked this question about like, what am I seeing in the industry? And so one of the things I had the fortune of doing is attending NVIDIA's big GTC conference earlier this year. So that's their big AI conference, like 25,000 AI experts around the world converge just so outside jealous. It was so much fun. I actually got interviewed by a news station based out of and I've been Googling, looking for it ever since. I think I may not have made the cut. Anyway, so, but here's 25,000 of the world's leading AI experts. And not one single person could align on a single definition of agentic AI. Isn't that, so like there were dozens and dozens of sessions where that was the basic question. Like what does AI have to be in order for it to qualify as agentic AI? What does it mean? What is the definition of et cetera, et cetera. And that should just tell you how disruptive these past 2 and 3 years have been. When you get disruption at this speed, there's so much experimentation, there's a lot of failure, and certainly you can't address it all at once. So, sorry, the last part of this is getting back to your question again. So, what do I see? Like, I think we can spend all day talking about productivity tools and all sorts. There's lots of great things out there that help. But I think like one of the most overlooked areas when it comes to AI, especially in the go-to-market realm, isn't the productivity or the tool play, but it's actually how you have a conversation with prospects and customers about the AI innovation that you're bringing to market, right? And I think that impacts the entire sales cycle from pipeline generation to landing your first deal to expansion. And what I see is a lot of teams struggle to talk about AI in a way that builds confidence in prospects.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if you guys see this, if you see the same thing as well.
Yeah. Thinking about my day job, the volume of things that now go through like some sort of legal compliance ticket because AI is in our terms and conditions it scares everyone. And yeah, I totally agree. We are grappling with this from our perspective on how do we make sure that the story is consistent and not, I mean, we aren't using those words, but not scary. Yeah. I 100% agree.
I think you can also, my big takeaway on agentic in particular is you can tell when a founder leads the marketing team because they're agentic first. Everything is agentic in their messaging and the way they're talking. And as a buyer, I'm just rolling my eyes because I'm like, no one knows what that means. That means nothing to most of us. And talk about what you do and the problems you solve. Yes, we all know that there's AI behind it, but it's just like, it's the biggest sign to me that your founder or someone from product owns your marketing or at least has a huge say in your marketing, and it's not your marketing team driving your marketing.
It's almost like we planned this, but I swear to anyone who's listening, we didn't. I actually have a real life example that I thought of as I was prepping for this. So I worked with a client and they were incredibly, so this was end of 24 into the beginning of this year, they introduced a bunch of agentic AI capabilities, really incredible stuff into their platform. And then they updated their sales messaging as well as a result of that. And one of the things they did was they swapped out one of the slides in their sales deck. And that slide was called the Wheel of Pain. Okay. And the Wheel of Pain was designed to help reps open discovery and uncover customer challenges.
That's like a great slide.
It's a great slide, Wheel of Pain. And we had built it for them specifically so reps could anchor their conversations in the customer's world and their context and not just talk about the product. But because they were so excited about all their AI product innovations, they replaced it. Instead, the beginning part of their sales messaging was all about bragging about their agentic capabilities. And guess what? Discovery started to fall flat. Prospects weren't connecting because the conversation was all about us, all about me. And eventually they realized they made this mistake and brought the Wheel of Pain back in. So to your point, Kelly, it's a really good reminder is that, you know, any new innovation or technology, and AI is not excluded from that, should support the story and not replace the fundamentals that we value and treasure so much in sales, which is around discovery and talking about value and things of that nature.
Kids in a candy store. We're just so excited about the new thing that we forget everything we've known about sales and marketing forever, which is focus on your buyer. And we were just like, but we want to talk about all the cool things we're doing.
I know. And you could probably like back yourself into believing this too. And there's probably like a certain segment of buyers who have like so much FOMO that they're willing to like,
they have an agenda. Like I have to go buy AI forward tools.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. But let me know when you find one of those, right? I think those are few and far between.
Yeah. One of the things you were just talking about around like the speed of innovation here, I think when you put a seller's hat on, or enablement or product marketing, whatever it is, that skills component, like enabling the teams and getting them up to speed on all of these new things your product's delivering at the speed that you now have to keep pace at, to keep table stakes on the board for whatever those AI and now agentic solutions are, while also still reminding them about the skills they need to fundamentally sell, is a balance that I haven't seen. It hasn't been as hard as it is right now, I think, previously, because the technology wasn't evolving so fast. Products weren't evolving this quickly. I'm curious if that's a good example of that one company, but are you seeing that more broadly where companies are trying to struggle to like still enable on the skills side of things while also doing all of this change management for products?
Yeah, 100%, because like, I mean, we'll just keep talking about AI because, to your point, like things are changing so quickly, and part of what's causing that is AI, new capabilities around AI, et cetera, et cetera. And so, a lot of times what I see is customers who have over rotated in one direction, which is we're only going to talk about AI. We've changed the landing page of our website to be all about AI, et cetera. And we're going to go into incredible detail about how our AI is just, the best thing since sliced bread. But then you see companies on the other end of the spectrum where they kind of have this approach of, listen, just trust us. This AI works, right? This is good stuff. Believe it. It's it's built on open AI's blah 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 platform. And so you do have this like weird fine balance, because for the buyer that feels very risky as well, right? Which is there's this black box that stuff is hiding in that no one can see, that you're asking, as a vendor, you're asking the client to put a lot of trust in that. And so what I've found through a lot of trial and error with different clients over the past couple of years is the problem that you're describing. It's really important, and this is generally like how I've approached my entire career, is to try to think of a easy framework for evaluating if you are enabling or have the right sort of approach to talking with prospects and clients. So, and I've tried to create this simple framework. You want to hear about it?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
I love a framework. Give me a framework.
All right. So it's 3 easy things. Okay. So the first one is around understanding. The second one is around belief. And the third part is around trust. Okay. And this definitely applies to AI, but I think it's actually much broader. But since this is the big topic that like everyone's tackling and investing in, it's I've largely applied it in that area. Okay, so let's start with the first one, understanding. So understanding is about showing a prospect how AI or an agent actually helps in their world. And it's not in abstract terms, but it's in context, right? And so what I see a lot of my clients doing that works really well, and I saw a few examples of this at GTC as well. If you're looking for something very practical, which is if you're going to have a sales conversation around agentic AI, one easy thing you can do is compare the workflow today without agentic and what it looks like tomorrow with agentic. And when you just spend the time doing that compare and contrast, it makes it real, right? By the way, this is why discovery is so important, because you can't talk about what their process looks like today and make that contrast unless you know. So that's why that's where the fundamental comes in. So that's understanding. And by the way, part of what I do help my clients diagnose, like, are they missing this understanding component in their messaging? And what we typically see is deals that stall early in the sales cycle lack understanding because buyers can't connect your story to their reality. So you see a lot of deals stalling very early in the sales cycle. So that's the first thing you're testing for, understanding. The second thing is belief. So a lot of companies will position AI as sort of a bolt-on, right? So they lead prospects to believe it's going to save a little bit of time or make a few steps more efficient. But the companies that do this really well, the real opportunity and where I've seen the biggest impact is when you can show how AI can reimagine the workflow. And the beauty is that doesn't mean you have to tear everything down and start over, right? What AI does is take a set of disconnected manual steps and turns them into this streamlined flow, resulting in faster, smarter, and ultimately something more valuable. And if you can create buyer belief in that, that's when real business value shows up. So if you're always only talking about small little step improvements as a result of AI, you're missing the big picture, or at least your clients are missing the big picture. So how do you know if you're not getting belief right in your sales cycle? Well, you often see deals get stuck at the lower levels of the organization, right? Because you're talking about very small improvements. You often fail to get support and budget from senior leaders in that company. So if you're seeing that, there's like this, what you're creating belief in may not be big enough for them to buy into. And then, so we have understanding, belief. And the third part of this framework is trust. Okay, so this is the one that tends to stall deals. And it's one I referred to earlier as like the black box, right? If your AI feels like a black box and if buyers can't see the guardrails or how outcomes are being validated, they're going to pull back. It's a lot like, I don't know, I'm sure both of you have pitched by vendors even before the AI era where they talked about our behind the scenes analytics create these outcomes and recommendations for you. And when you ask like, how does it do that? Or they don't really have, well, that's our secret sauce. Like that's sort of the answer for it. Right. And so that would be the analogy. So just the last thing, like how do you know if you're lacking trust? So what you generally see is you have a lot of early excitement, but when it comes time to commit, the deal slows down or stalls, right? Buyers hesitate to sign off, and it's not because they don't see the value, but it's because they don't feel confident enough to take that leap. You haven't built that trust. So that's the framework I help my clients lean on and ask questions around and try to diagnose, like, do I have these three things when it comes to messaging: understanding, belief, and trust. And it's not a theory, it's what I've seen in practice. And if you're missing even just one of these, your AI story can often fall short and not break through the noise.
I think that really resonates with me. And I think really the trust piece of it.
Okay.
The one thing so I've been a part of a couple buying processes recently on behalf of a couple of my customers. And if the salesperson can't immediately say why they're secure and why to trust their AI, and they're like, well, let me get a solution engineer on the call. I'm like, nope, if you can't put it to me in very simple terms, then it means it's going to take a really long time for me to get through compliance and security reviews.
That's right.
The second I ask a sales rep, okay, talk to me about why you're secure, and they've got that elevator pitch, I'm instantly more intrigued because it makes it less scary.
That's right.
Yeah. And they're using it in simple terms. And I know I know a lot of times, especially in previous sales, you wanted to bring in the sales engineer to get really technical with the technical team, but you still need your basic sales rep to give that basic answer and to just put some comfort and belief and understanding there right away.
Yeah. I think it's like when things move from on-prem to cloud, right? And you were trying to tell people, no, the cloud is very secure. And then you would ask, like, well, why is that secure? Well, let me get my SE on the call to explain that to you. And this is and this, by the way, what you brought up was a really great point, because now no one wonders if cloud is secure. Of course, you still have to go through InfoSec and all that stuff, but it's not like that's never a deal stopper in a deal anymore in opportunities, but that can be for AI. And I think like reps have this once in a lifetime. AI will reach some level of maturity at some point where, Kelly, you probably won't ask that question anymore. But right now, reps have this unique opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity to create this trust with that buyer that can last a lifetime if they are equipped to help address some of these things around trust and the other two areas that I mentioned.
I think it's so tricky because the trust can come in so many different layers. Like, do you trust it to not hallucinate? Do you trust it on how it's accessing your data? Do you trust it to make the right decisions? Do you trust it to be embedded in certain systems? And so I agree, and I experienced that quite a bit. We're a cybersecurity company, and so like we're constantly talking security, and so that's a huge piece of it for sure, is that trust layer. But there's so many angles of it with AI that I think it makes it really hard for sellers to wrap their heads around like a really crisp story. Is there an area that you found that focusing on in that messaging that lands the best in the clients you've worked with?
Yeah, couple things. One is I think more so now than even just 6 months ago, customers have, or vendors have become more proactive with their security stance, right? So they are very much publishing these types of answers to all those like layers of questions. So that's the first part. And I think, I go back to if we're going to enable, by the way, just because that content exists doesn't mean your sales rep knows it exists, right? Or has internalized it or has the ability to speak to it. So I think that most companies have had enough experience with these types of questions now that the answers exist somewhere. And the key is, where do I focus my enablement efforts, right? And how do I scale that? And so I think this is where I don't know that there's a simple solution other than you just got to peel off some time, because this is really important. Now, what can help is like, it depends on where you are in the sales cycle. So if early on during the intro call, Kelly asks about, is it secure? You're probably going to give like a 1 to 2 sentence answer around that. And as you go deeper, you'll provide more details. So the other thing I just want to add to that, Tiffany, is I don't know if you have this at your company. One of my close friends is like she was a chief of staff to the CEO, and then she got moved into a new role where she like leads the AI procurement team or AI buying committee, and like all AI purchases go through her. And by the way, all renewals of software go through her as well, right? If all like within the time that the product has been bought and you've added AI to it, when it comes time for renewal, it goes through this extra level of scrutiny.
Did not exist 5 years ago.
That's right. That's right.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I call it AI. When I told her, I'm like, because some of my clients were running into this, I gave her a call and I was asking her about it. She's like, oh yeah, we don't call it an AI buying committee, but yeah, it's like me, there's someone on the legal team, there's someone on the business team, and we just have to evaluate all this, like every single AI purchase before we make a decision.
Yeah. We have one in the company. I think it's actually pretty standard these days.
It's totally standard, but like for one of my clients, they were like, their deals, like when this first came up, their deals kept slipping every quarter for a few quarters in a row, because all of a sudden this was a new step in the process that they weren't prepared for. So getting back to the point, which is, I think we have enough experience now under our belt where we've seen all the different scenarios. And so it becomes sort of, how do we assemble a playbook based on these known pieces of information, and how do we effectively help enable reps with that playbook?
Yeah.
So you shared I wrote it down, your understand, belief, and trust model. Do you have any examples of clients who have implemented that and how it's working?
Yeah. So I love to say, like all good frameworks and models, it is borrowed from what I see in real life. So the first example I'll give you isn't even one of my clients. So when I was at the GTC conference, I think I had a chance to see ServiceNow pitch live. And I actually think they do this incredibly well, right? So, here we are at NVIDIA's conference. Everyone's talking about AI. And I thought they did an incredible job of not just hyping up their AI even more. And they actually slowed down to define what agentic AI means in a business context. So they talked about it from an IT lens and from a lot of other departmental lenses and what that could potentially mean. And then they did exactly what I talked about, which was they showed a side-by-side workflow of what life looks like without an agent and what life looks like with an agentic AI agent. And that made it very real. So they had built examples. Now, keep in mind, like, Lord, this is January or February of this year. So who knows how many agent examples they had actually implemented in real life. So this is where like perhaps they had to use a little bit of creativity and imagination. But even that was okay because it really helped to paint a clearer picture of what life could be. And then the last thing that they did, which I think was super interesting, is they talked about where AI is today and then where it's headed. And by definition, when you talk about where it is today, you're also having a realistic conversation about how accurate it is, how much it can do, and where there are still gaps, but then sharing where vision of where it's headed. And so if you think about, and I keep, since you brought up trust, I'll just keep talking about trust, which is, I think, the ability to actually share a realistic view of what AI can and cannot do helps to build trust with your clients. Another company that does this really well is Anthropic, right? So Anthropic publishes these research papers on the limitations of AI. You don't really see that from the other leading AI platforms, and they're very honest about it. And it's great. They actually have dedicated research teams that try to push the limits. And when they hit the limit, they publish some articles around that. We could do a whole nother podcast. They have like tons of really interesting research. They had one where like AI actually they ran this scenario where AI might get replaced at a company. So the AI actually ends up blackmailing some of the employees in order to preserve itself. Yeah, so there's a piece of research that they did on that. Can you believe it? It's crazy stuff. But anyway, so those are the types of things, examples I draw from for my clients. I see great examples out there of leading companies doing it, and we try to borrow bits and pieces to fit the specific situation of each and every customer.
It's so interesting and such a cool take on like we were talking about earlier. We've talked a ton about AI, but like talking about how you position it and it weaves its way into enablement is like a fascinating different lens we haven't spent nearly enough time discussing. Love, like as I'm pondering all the things we just talked about, John, one of the things that we love to do is have our guests leave us with a question, something that we can start to form a point of view for ourselves on around this topic. What question will you leave us with?
Oh, can it be more than one question?
Yes.
Because I did introduce this framework around understanding belief and trust. So I think one question for each of these, and I think by the way, it's a very practical question you can ask yourself. So when it comes to understanding, are you actually helping your customers see how your AI capabilities actually fits into their world and in their context and not just your own? So that's my question around understanding. The second question around belief is, are you showing buyers that AI isn't just a bolt-on to optimize a few steps, but a way to actually transform workflows and create real business value? So that's the belief. And the third and final question around trust is, what are you doing to earn trust in your AI story? And this, by the way, applies to every role in that sales organization. It could be your SDR and how they're doing their PG. It's obviously with the AEs on how they're having customer conversation, but also with your AMs and CSMs as you look to expand the deal. So what are you doing to earn trust in your AI story so customers feel confident enough to act with urgency and not hesitation? And I think if you ask yourself these three questions, and you're not scoring 100% on that, what that means is I don't look at it as a gap. I think almost every vendor out there will have a gap if they ask themselves this question. And getting back to the premise of our podcast, which is like, how do you break through the noise when everybody's talking about AI? Like there's no silver bullet, but if you can honestly answer those 3 questions and start putting a plan in place to address it, that in essence becomes your silver bullet that can really differentiate you and help you stand out from the noise.
I love this conversation.
So
This is great.
something I can like take and apply right away.
Yeah, I have multiple customers that I will be sending this podcast to, John, to have them listen to the framework because I think they could use it.
I love it. I love how Kelly and Tiffany, I love how you made me really think about like some of the work that's been happening. It helped me really think about how quickly AI has evolved in a short amount of time. And then what I love is working with my clients, and sorry, all the clients that I've worked with for the past 2 years that I've done trial and error with because of AI. But you have helped, to contribute to this incredible framework that hopefully you can continue with as well. So thank you. Loved our conversation today.
Amazing.
Thank you, John. Appreciate all the time today. People can find you on LinkedIn, Scale GTM and John Hsieh on LinkedIn if they're interested in more content from you.
That's right. And on my website, scalegtm.com, and listen to the podcast. There'll be lots of great stuff there as well.
You and I need to connect offline. I feel like we have some synergies that we should connect on. So that's
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.